Heart of Crown Fairy Garden is a new game by Japanime Games. It is a deck building game and it is the standalone sequel or companion to Heart of Crown. The game rules of Heart of Crown Fairy Garden are basically the same as the ones that you have in the original Heart of Crown. The rulebook is laid out the same way, the rules are virtually the same. There are a couple of things here that are different, but mainly they look to me like they're clarifications. What is different is that you have a different set of cards that you will use to purchase, to create your decks, and to create different effects. Actually, that only applies to sort of like the special market, that is, those cards that will be different from game to game. The basic cards that are used to set up the basic market are the same. I set them up here, and if you play the original Heart of Crown, then you may notice that they're exactly the same. What I'm going to do now is to give you a sense of how the game plays in case you do not know the original Heart of Crown, and then we're going to take a closer look at some of the unique cards that you find in Fairy Garden. Now, Heart of Crown, Fairy Garden, or the original one, they both are deck building games. That means that you start with a deck of cards, you will shuffle them, then each turn you will draw 5 cards into your hand. You will play them, then you will discard them, and then you repeat that, you will form a discard pile. During the game you will acquire cards that you purchase go in your discard pile. That means that when your draw pile is empty, you will reshuffle the discard pile, so your deck will become bigger and bigger and will be modified by the cards that you buy. This is why it's a deck building game. Cards have a cost in the top left corner. Then here at the bottom they will tell you what the card does. The card may generate income, this one generates 1 coin, may have a modifier, positive or negative, in terms of what is called succession points. In truth, that pretty much means victory points. And also you may, for example, this one gives you -2 victory points. Cards may also have effects, text effects, that are simply described in the card, at the bottom of the card itself. Cards also have links. They are these arrows here. Some cards have 1 outward arrow, some cards have 2, 1 on the side and 1 at the bottom, and some cards have none. During your turn you will play cards, and pretty much you can play at least 1 card plus as many cards as you have and you want to play, and you can possibly link. So for example, this one, I can link it to 1 of the cards, so I can then play this card that has a link, and then I can play it to link it one other card. If I play this one has no outward links, so my turn will be over. At least that phase in which I play cards will be over. There will be cards, as I said, you can acquire that have 2 links, so you will be able, for example, in this case, to play a card that with no further links, but if it has another link, then you can play another card attached to that link, which may generate another link, and so on and so forth. So that's how you play cards during your main phase. Now, what we're trying to do here is to create an engine of game effects that will allow you to buy valuable cards. Your turn opens with you playing cards from your hand and creating that combination that you saw there, applying all of the effects that apply. They are self-explanatory when they are described in text effects, or again also or generating income. After you are done playing your chain of cards and resolving their effects, you can do one and only one of the following things. You can buy cards from the market. The market will have these cards here that are always available, and they are in every game, they're standard cards, plus a selection of cards from this deck here that I will show you later. Basically, this is a collection of different types of cards, of which there are 5. There are 5 of each kind. So we have 5 butlers, 5 traveling entertainers, 5 spies, and so on and so forth. At the beginning of the game, you randomly select 10 types of cards from this big pile here. I keep them in a single pile, of course you can organize them differently, but basically we'll have 10 types of special cards with 5 copies of each. You will shuffle them and the other ones are not used. And that deck of 50 cards, you reveal cards face up until 8 of them are visible. Basically 8 types of cards from this deck will be available at any given moment in the game. So when you're spending your income to buy cards, you will be able to buy cards from the standard market and from the 8 visible types that I will show you later. To buy a card, you simply need to have generated enough income to meet or exceed its cost. And as long as you can pay for multiple cards, then you can buy, well, as many as you want. If I generated 9 points of income this time, I could buy these 2. So you can buy multiple cards, but again, you need to afford them. Cards like the ones that you see here in the standard market may generate income or may generate victory points. This one is very valuable, generates 6 victory points. Now, important, so during your second phase of your turn, after you play cards from hand, as we said, you can spend money to buy cards from the market, in which case then they go in your discard pile and they will get in your hand after discard pile is reshuffled. Or instead of buying cards, you may back a princess. There are several princesses that are available there. They all cost 6 to back up. They have different unique effects. You may pause the video if you want to read the text. Backing a princess is a one-time thing in the game. You do it only once. Once you back a princess, you're stuck with her. But it's an important thing because basically the point is that you're trying to back a princess and then to give her 20 victory points. I guess the idea is you back a princess and then you help her become the new queen, and so you yourself acquire a lot of power in the process. So for once in the game, you may choose to back a princess. Suppose that I have at least 6 in income that they generate, I decide to back the princess. When you back the princess, you start your domain. That means that you take the princess and you put it in an area, in your play area, a specific area, different from the area where you usually play your cards to make your chains. You designate part of your play area as your domain. What you also need to do is to take 3 cards from your hand, 3 territory cards from your hand, and you put them next to your princess, and now they form your domain. It's possible that they are different from the ones that you had at the beginning. So your domain will consist of your princess and up to 3 cards. Now that is important. The domain, these territory cards that you put there now count as slots. They're particularly important because when you have cards from your hand during the main phase of your turn, when you're playing cards and making that chain, you can choose to store cards there. Maybe you don't want them in your deck, so you temporarily store them there. Or they're good cards and you want to save them there to create powerful combos for later. Basically, after you have a domain during your turn, you can put down, store there, and or pick up as many cards, well, as you want, up to the number of territories that you have. So that gives you particularly effective control and again, a considerable degree of control over your hand and what happens, what's in your deck, and what you'll be able to use in the later turns. Once you have a domain, you can also perform another action, which is to play succession cards, cards with a victory point, into your domain, sort of locking them to your princess. Then this would be if you want to do so, it's an action that you do in the second phase of your turn instead of buying cards on the market or instead of backing a princess. Well, you need to already have backed a princess. So if I had this in my hand, after I'm done with my chain of effects, if I had these cards in my hand, instead of buying anything, I can simply play them in my domain. When I take that action of locking cards, victory point cards in my domain, that way I can lock as many as I want for a single action. So basically summarizing, during your turn, you can first play cards to create effects, generate income, generate effects. Then you either buy cards from the market or you back a princess, or if you have a domain already, you can lock victory point cards in your domain. The first player to reach 20 victory points is the winner of the game. Now let's have a look at some of the specific cards that come with Heart of Crown Fairy Garden. The Butler will give you 2 coins or will allow you to select an action or succession card from your hand, banish it, and then acquire another card. The Traveling Entertainer will allow you to discard a number of cards and then you can gain an equal number of coins or draw an equal number of cards. Imperial Manor always gives you a coin and also lets you place extra succession point tokens on princesses, very powerful because that remembers victory points. Librarian, kind of like your standard card that lets you get more cards. Nymph, oh, you see from the dark red background, is one of those aggressive cards. Each of your opponents must discard the top cards on their draw pile, and then you may select one of them and get a card of the same main type from the market. Cute little fairies of the Spring Breeze. When you acquire it, you get a farming village, which is the basic source of income in the game. Also, then you may discard a card from hand to draw 2. The Pilgrim allows you to banish cards, very powerful. The Spy has a double link, so that is also important. And each of you gets your coin, and each opponent must reveal a card and possibly discard it. Icy Snow Spirit, long description for say, I'm gonna give you curses, and that's pretty much what she does, gives curses to your opponent. Regiment, one of those cards that build their power upon itself, upon having multiple copies. Basically the value of coins that it produces is equal to the number of crossbow regiments in your discard pile plus 2. So the more you have, the more valuable each will be. Harvest Festival. Discard a farming village or curse and then draw 3 cards. Look at the top of your draw pile. This is important. And you may then add the card that you picked up to your hand or banish it. If you do so, you turn it into a coin. This is important because, let's see, where's the Plantation? That's an important card. And it's a card that really works well if you have means of banishing cards. There you go, the Plantation. When you buy the Plantation, it will give you 3 coins each time. Awesome, but you acquire 3 farming villages from the market. The farming villages are not bad, but you will have better cards later, say, after you buy a Plantation. So those farming villages, after a while, they clog your hand. They're good to start with, but you want to get rid of them. So if you have a Plantation and cards such as the Pilgrim and the Blessing that allow you to banish some of those farming villages in excess, that's great. The Magistrate is possibly the only card in the new set that I don't like all that much because it creates a state of equilibrium. It makes the game last longer. It gives you 3 victory points, hooray, but when you buy it, you select and discard 1 Royal Maid, Senator, or Duke from each opponent's domain. This is huge. The problem is that basically no one is gonna buy Royal Maids, Senators, or Dukes until these are all gone. No one wants to be in that position. We almost just write, while the Magistrate is in play, while there are Magistrates that have not been bought, no one can buy those cards, because that is what's gonna happen. I did it once, and of course I had to buy a Senator and a Duke, and then I lost them, and I was like, what were they thinking? I started buying all the Magistrates. So it just makes the game last longer and doesn't give you really much of a benefit. I don't think I'm gonna play with this type of card again, but there's plenty of others, not like I don't have options. Trading Cities, Trading CT, it allows you to banish a territory succession card and then you can acquire a different card. Tax Collector gives you coins and forces the opponent to discard cards. Leaf Fairy, you draw a card and then you may discard a farming village from your hand. Again, good if you have a ton of those from the Plantation, and that will allow you to buy other cards. Take the bottom card from the draw pile. Kind of weird. I like the double links. So kind of weird. It just means, you know, get an extra card. I don't know why from the bottom. It's just a little uncomfortable to take it out from the bottom instead of from the top. The Guildmaster, not gonna read it, is way too long and it's just a little bit complicated and we don't need to worry about that now. If you buy you can only buy the Street Fortune Teller if you have played a territory that's not worth much this turn. Then it will give you 2 coins and also lets you look at the top of your draw pile, and you can then manipulate what you find there. I don't think we need to go through all of them. I hope that kind of gave you a sense of the kind of effects that you have. Now there are some effects, just to give you a sense, that will need counters, and so they're a little more elaborate. Say, put 1 coin counter in your coin area. This ability cannot put more than 1 coin counter in your coin area, and then at any time you can remove the coin counter from your coin area to gain 1 income. Basically, you're storing money there. So, you know what, for the remaining ones, I'll just show them to you. Feel free to pause and to pause the video and to read the effects. This way, this video will not last 20 hours. This could be a good balance to the Magistrate, because actually this card speeds things up. This allows player to acquire victory point cards faster. Almost there. All right, and now for the conclusions. Heart of Crown Fairy Garden. I like this game very much. I like it mechanically, I like the production. Recently I played and reviewed Kamigami Battles, which is another deck builder by the same publisher, Japanime, and I complained a little bit about the art, which is not my cup of tea. I like the art of Heart of Crown Fairy Garden much more. First, it's more anatomically correct. It looks like these women don't think the clothing is unnecessary. It looks like they could actually stand. They are anatomically, they make sense. But in general, it's just very pretty, very beautiful, very poetic art. Sort of shoujo manga style, which is not a style of manga that I read, but visually, I think it works for a set of illustrations on a card game. Mechanically, Heart of Crown Fairy Garden is a strong deck building game. I like it very much, and I like in particular how punctuated the experience feels. As opposed to other games in which, yeah, you're building your engine and gradually you just want your deck engine to become stronger and stronger and stronger. Here it almost feels like the story has chapters, because if nothing else, there is that momentous decision that you make about backing the princess. Which one you back and when, and that is key. If you back the princess a little too early, then the territory cards that you have are possibly the initial cards, which are very weak, and in fact are going to give you a penalty in terms of victory points. They have a -2, those farming villages. If you buy cities and larger cities and other valuable territory cards in the game, and you put those in your dominion, now you have a stronger dominion. But as you do so, you just immediately weaken your deck and weaken your resource engine again, your money engine again. So I like the balance that there is in that. You do it too early, your terrain is not so great. You do it later, then you can't take advantage of your princess for as much as you would have. And at the same time, you have to take a break to rebuild your engine a little bit, because maybe you were able to buy really big cards until last turn and now you can't. However, then also the game changes considerably when you have that ability to control the cards that you get in your hand, then you get outside of the deck. The saving cards and manipulating your domain to save cards, to create future synergies, to me really adds an interesting element. It spices things up quite a bit. And again, it makes the game feel like it has a progression, so that the first phase feels different from the second, and yet they don't feel separate from one another, they don't feel disjointed. They feel like, again, a nice organic sense of progression as you're able to do more things. And just becomes, as the game progresses, it becomes more tactically rewarding, again, thanks to those synergies, thanks to those options, thanks to now the option of, well, I don't need to buy anything maybe now, then I'll use this to play victory point cards in my domain. That also is interesting in that the deck building games, in the last phases of the game, very often you buy stuff just because maybe you don't need all that much. Now you have an option, and then you're gonna play different things. You have a lot of money this turn, but you, instead of buying, you're gonna play those cards. Then I save the money in my domain, so it's not wasted. I just like the degree of control that you have over what you do, especially after you have your domain, which does not, however, make the game feel deterministic. You still have the fun and the excitement of having to deal with the randomness of shuffling your deck, but at the same time you have a degree of control and planning that feels really rewarding, really satisfying. In general, I like the effects that you have, which feel fun, and there are just a lot of fun things that you can do with them, but they don't feel very powerful. Again, with the exception of the Magistrate, I'm not sold about that one, but it's one type of card. So in general, Heart of Crown Fairy Garden, I played it with hardcore gamer, I played with absolute casual gamers. They all liked it, they were all able to get it. Now, for a total newbie, a total casual player that never played a deck builder, this is not the easiest to get into because you get to learn about the deck builder and then you have those extra steps. But it's definitely not prohibitively complicated. And for hardcore or for dedicated gamers, then you have that extra layer, that extra structure that really makes the experience interesting. Heart of Crown Fairy Garden, a solid and very enjoyable deck building game.